Most of us move through life without ever truly noticing that we are moving. Thoughts arise, emotions surge, reactions happen, and before we even realize it, the moment has passed. We call this living, but in truth, it is a kind of sleep, a quiet, unconscious drifting shaped by past conditioning and automatic patterns. And within this state of unawareness, suffering takes root, not because life is inherently painful, but because we are not present enough to see clearly what is happening within us. Awareness is the gentle light that begins to dissolve this darkness. It is not something you need to create because it already exists within you. It is the silent witness behind every thought, the still presence behind every emotion. Right now, as you listen, there is a part of you that is simply observing, effortless, unchanged, untouched by whatever is passing through your mind. This awareness is your true nature, and reconnecting with it is the beginning of freedom. When you are unaware, your thoughts control you. A single negative idea can spiral into anxiety, and memory can trigger sadness. A situation can provoke anger before you even have the chance to choose your response. But the moment you become aware, something shifts. You are no longer inside the storm, you are watching it. The thoughts may still come, the emotions may still rise, but they lose their power to define you. You begin to see that you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness in which those thoughts appear and disappear. This simple shift is profound. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow. Each thought is like a leaf drifting on the surface. When you are unconscious, you jump into the river and get carried away by every leaf, every current. But awareness allows you to sit on the shore. You observe without being pulled in. You witness without being overwhelmed. And in that witnessing, there is a quiet sense of peace. Suffering often persists because we resist what we feel or become entangled in the story behind it. We label emotions as good or bad, and we try to hold on to some while pushing others away. But awareness does not judge, it simply sees. When you allow yourself to fully observe an emotion without resisting it, something unexpected happens. It begins to dissolve on its own, not because you forced it to go away, but because you stopped feeding it with unconscious attention. You may notice this in your own experience. When you bring gentle awareness to your breath, your body begins to relax. When you observe your thoughts without reacting, they slow down. When you sit quietly with an uncomfortable feeling, it eventually changes, softens, or fades. This is the intelligence of awareness at work. It does not fight suffering, it transforms it. And yet, awareness is not something that requires effort or struggle. In fact, the more you try to force it, the further it seems to slip away. It is found in simple noticing. Noticing the rhythm of your breath, noticing the sensations in your body, noticing the space between your thoughts. In these small moments of attention, you begin to return to yourself. As this awareness deepens, you start to recognize patterns that once operated invisibly. You see how certain thoughts lead to certain emotions, how certain beliefs shape your reactions, how your past continues to influence your present. This seeing is not meant to judge or criticize, but to liberate. Because once you see clearly, you are no longer bound by what you see. You gain the freedom to respond differently, to choose consciously, to step out of old cycles. Gradually, you realize that suffering is not something imposed upon you by the world. It is something that arises within the mind when there is a lack of awareness. And just as darkness disappears in the presence of light, suffering begins to fade in the presence of awareness. Not all at once, not perfectly, but gently, consistently, as you continue to return to this inner space of witnessing. There is a quiet power in simply being present. No need to fix, no need to change, no need to become anything other than what you are in this moment. In this presence, you discover a peace that does not depend on circumstances, a peace that remains even when life is uncertain, even when challenges arise. Because this peace is not something you achieve, it is something you uncover. So begin here, not tomorrow, not later, but now. Notice your breath, notice your thoughts, notice the awareness that is noticing. And in this simple act of seeing, you take the first step out of suffering and into freedom. Awareness is the beginning of all transformation. There is a quiet misunderstanding that shapes much of human suffering, the belief that desire itself is the problem. You may have been told in subtle or direct ways that wanting more, seeking something better, or longing for change is what disturbs your peace. And so you begin to question your own desires, to suppress them, to deny the natural impulse within you that reaches toward growth, love, and expansion. But look closely, and you will begin to see that desire is not your enemy. It is, in fact, a reflection of life moving through you, expressing itself as possibility. Desire is the seed of creation. Every dream, every vision, every meaningful step you have taken began as a desire. It is the energy that pulls you forward, that invites you to explore, to evolve, to experience life more fully. Without desire, there would be no movement, no curiosity, no unfolding of your potential. So the question is not whether you should desire, but how you relate to what you desire. Suffering begins when desire turns into attachment. Attachment is the invisible chain that binds your inner state to an external outcome. It whispers to you, I will only be happy when this happens. I will only feel complete when I get that. I will only be at peace when life unfolds exactly as I imagine. And in that moment, your well being is no longer within you, it is placed outside in something uncertain, something constantly changing. Notice what happens within you when you become attached. There is tension, a subtle tightening of the mind and body. There is fear, the fear of not getting what you want, or the fear of losing what you already have. There is anxiety as your thoughts begin to race toward the future, trying to control what cannot be controlled. And even when you achieve what you desire, the satisfaction is often temporary, quickly replaced by a new longing, a new condition for happiness. This is the cycle of attachment. It keeps you chasing, seeking, striving, but rarely arriving, because the mind that is attached is always projecting fulfillment into the future, never allowing itself to rest in the present moment. It says, not yet, not enough, not here. And so, even in moments of success or pleasure, there is an underlying restlessness. But there is another way to live, a way in which desire remains alive, vibrant, and creative, but without the burden of attachment. This way begins with a simple shift in understanding. You can desire something deeply, fully, with pause, ion, and clarity, while at the same time remaining open to how life chooses to unfold. You can move toward your goals with intention, while also trusting that your happiness does not depend on the outcome. This is not indifference, and it is not passivity. It is a state of inner freedom. You still act, you still create, you still dream, but you are no longer imprisoned by the need. for a specific result. Your actions become an expression of who you are rather than a means to complete yourself. And in that shift, something remarkable happens. The pressure dissolves, the fear softens, the joy returns to the process itself. When you are unattached, you begin to experience life more directly. You are no longer filtering every moment through the question, is this giving me what I want? Instead, you are present with what is, open to the richness of experience as it unfolds. You discover that fulfillment is not a destination waiting for you somewhere in the future, but a quality of awareness that is available right now. You may still set intentions, still hold visions of what you wish to create. But these intentions are held lightly, like a bird resting in your hands. You care for them, you nurture them, but you do not grip them so tightly that you suffocate them. You allow space for change, for surprise, for outcomes that may be different, and perhaps even more aligned than what you originally imagined. In this space, trust begins to replace control. You start to sense that life is not something you must force into shape, but something you can collaborate with. There is an intelligence at play far greater than the limited perspective of the thinking mind. When you release your rigid attachment, you allow this intelligence to guide you, often in ways that feel more effortless, more harmonious, and more deeply satisfying. And perhaps most importantly, you reclaim your inner peace, no longer dependent on circumstances, no longer tied to specific results. Your sense of well being becomes stable, grounded within you. You can experience success without clinging to it, and disappointment without being broken by it. You move through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that whatever comes, you remain whole. So, do not fear your desires, listen to them, honor them, let them inspire you, guide you, and expand your sense of what is possible. But do not hand them the power to define your happiness. Let your joy come from the awareness within you, not from the outcomes outside of you. Desire freely, but remain unattached, and you will discover a peace that no outcome can give or take away. There is a quiet belief that lives deep within the human mind, often unspoken yet constantly shaping your experience. The belief that something is missing. It may not always appear clearly, but it reveals itself in the way you search, in the way you strive, in the subtle feeling that who you are, as you are, is not quite enough. And so life becomes a journey of filling this imagined gap. You seek success to feel worthy, relationships to feel complete, recognition to feel seen. Each step forward carries the hope that finally something will complete you. But pause for a moment and look closely at this pattern. Every time you achieve something you once desired, there is a brief moment of satisfaction, a fleeting sense of arrival, and then, almost quietly, the feeling fades. Another desire emerges, another goal appears, another condition is placed on your happiness. This is not because you are doing something wrong, it is because the belief itself that you are incomplete is an illusion, and no external achievement can ever resolve an illusion, and no external achievement can ever resolve an illusion that was never true to begin with. At your core, beyond the layers of thought, identity, and conditioning, there is a presence that is already whole. It does not need validation. It does not depend on comparison. And it is not depend on comparison. And it is not defined by success or failure. It simply is. This presence has always been with you, quietly aware, untouched by the changing circumstances of your life. When you were a child, before the world told you who you should be, that same presence was there. And even now, beneath every thought and emotion, it remains unchanged. The challenge is not that this wholeness is absent, but that it is overlooked. The mind is constantly moving outward, seeking fulfillment in objects, experiences, and outcomes. It becomes so focused on what is next that it forgets to recognize what is already here. And in this forgetting, the illusion of lack is created. You begin to identify with your roles, your achievements, your limitations, and you lose sight of the deeper truth of who you are. But the moment you turn inward, even briefly, something begins to shift. When you sit in stillness, when you observe your thoughts without becoming them, when you allow yourself to simply be without trying to become, you start to sense a quiet completeness. It is not dramatic, not overwhelming, but deeply peaceful. It feels like coming home to something familiar, something that was never truly lost. From this space, your relationship with life begins to change. You no longer seek experiences to complete you, but to express you. Your actions are no longer driven by a sense of lack, but by a sense of fullness. You create, you connect, you explore, not because you need something, but because you have something to share. And this subtle shift transforms everything. When you believe you are incomplete, life becomes a constant effort to prove your worth. You compare yourself to others, you measure your progress, you fear failure because it threatens your sense of identity. But when you recognize your I and inherent wholeness, these patterns begin to dissolve. You are no longer defined by external standards. You begin to move through life with a quiet confidence, not because you have everything, but because you realize you already are everything you need to be. This does not mean that challenges disappear or that you stop growing. Growth continues, desires still arise, and life remains dynamic. But the foundation from which you experience it all is different. Instead of striving to become whole, you grow from a place of wholeness. Instead of chasing fulfillment, you act from fulfillment. And in doing so, even ordinary moments take on a deeper sense of meaning. You may begin to notice this in simple ways. The way you enjoy a conversation without needing approval, the way you pursue a goal without fearing the outcome, the way you sit quietly and feel at ease without needing distraction. These are small glimpses of your true nature, reminding you that peace is not something to be achieved, but something to be remembered. And as this understanding deepens, the need to search begins to soften. You realize that what you have been seeking in the world is already present within you. Not as an idea, not as a belief, but as a direct experience. A quiet, steady sense of being that does not come and go, that does not depend on circumstances, that remains constant through all of life's changes. So the journey is no longer about becoming something more, but about recognizing what has always been here. It is about gently letting go of the illusion of lack and allowing your natural state of wholeness to reveal itself. Nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be fixed, only seen. You are not incomplete and you never were. There is a subtle but powerful shift that begins to happen when you move from asking, "What do I want?" to asking, "Who am I becoming?" At first, the difference may seem small, almost insignificant, but if you sit with it, you will begin to feel how deeply it transforms the way you relate to your life. The question of what you want is often shaped by the mind, by comparison, by conditioning, by the influence of the world around you. It looks outward, scanning for something to acquire, to achieve, to possess. But the question of who you are becoming turns your attention inward. It invites you to look at the source from which all your desires arise. When you focus only on what you want, life can easily become a series of pursuits. One goal leads to another, one achievement gives way to the next, and there is always something just beyond your reach that promises fulfillment. You may find yourself thinking, when I have this, I will be happy. When I reach that, I will feel complete. And yet, as you have already begun to see, this cycle rarely brings lasting peace because what you want is constantly changing, shaped by fleeting circumstances and shifting expectations, but who you are becoming is something deeper, something more stable. It is the quality of your awareness, the nature of your presence, the way you meet each moment of your life. It is not defined by external outcomes, but by your inner state. And this inner state, more than anything else, determines the experience of your life. Consider for a moment that two people can have the same circumstances, the same opportunities, even the same achievements, and yet live entirely different lives internally. One may feel restless, anxious, never satisfied, always chasing something more. The other may feel grounded, peaceful, quietly fulfilled, even while continuing to grow and evolve. The difference is not in what they have, but in who they are being. When you begin to ask, who am I becoming? You start to take responsibility for this inner dimension. You become aware of the qualities you are cultivating within yourself. Are you becoming more present, or more distracted, more compassionate, or more reactive, more aligned with your deeper truth, or more influenced by external noise? These are the questions that shape the direction of your life in a profound way. And something remarkable begins to happen when you focus on becoming rather than acquiring. Your desires begin to shift naturally. Instead of wanting things that simply impress or satisfy the ego, you begin to feel drawn toward experiences and goals that reflect your deeper values. You no longer chase what looks good from the outside, but what feels true on the inside. This alignment brings a sense of clarity that the mind alone cannot provide. You may also notice that when you cultivate certain qualities within yourself, your external life begins to reflect them. When you become more peaceful, your interactions carry less conflict. When you become more present, your experiences feel richer and more meaningful. When you become more authentic, your relationships deepen. Life begins to mirror your inner state, not because you are controlling it, but because you are in harmony with it. This is why focusing on who you are becoming is not separate from achieving what you want. It is the foundation of it, because what you attract, what you create, and what you experience is deeply influenced by the energy you embody. If you are constantly anxious, even success may feel unsatisfying. If you are grounded and aware, even simple moments can feel complete. There is also a quiet freedom in this shift. When your focus is on becoming, you are no longer entirely dependent on outcomes for your sense of progress. You can grow in any moment, regardless of circumstances. Even challenges become opportunities, not to prove yourself, but to deepen your awareness, your patience, your resilience. Every experience becomes part of your evolution rather than something to resist or escape. And as you continue on this path, you begin to realize that the question itself, who am I becoming, is not about reaching a final answer. It is about staying conscious, staying present, staying connected to the unfolding of your own being. It is a living inquiry, one that evolves with you, guiding you gently toward a more authentic expression of yourself. So instead of chasing a distant version of happiness, You begin to embody the qualities that create it. Instead of waiting for life to give you meaning, you bring meaning into each moment through your presence. And in doing so, you discover that the life you have been seeking is not something separate from who you are. It is something that emerges naturally as you become more aligned with your true self. Do not ask only what you want from life, ask who you are becoming through it. There is a subtle habit of the mind that quietly sustains much of human suffering, and it often goes unnoticed because it feels so natural. The mind is rarely where life is actually happening. It drifts backward into memories or forward into imagined futures, constantly moving away from the only place where existence truly unfolds, the present moment. And in this movement, it creates stories, replays events, anticipates outcomes, and becomes entangled in a reality that is not here. When the mind looks to the past, it often carries regret, guilt, or longing. It replays conversations, revisits mistakes, and wonders what could have been different. You may find yourself thinking, if only I had done this, if only that had not happened. And each time you return to these thoughts, the emotional experience is revived. The body responds as if the past is happening again, even though it no longer exists. In this way, the past is not just remembered, it is relived again and again through unconscious attention. And then the mind turns toward the future. It imagines possibilities, but often through the lens of fear or uncertainty. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if things don't work out? These thoughts create anxiety, a sense of unease about something that has not yet happened and may never happen. The future becomes a projection of the mind, shaped more by fear than by reality. And just like the past, it begins to feel real, influencing your emotions and your state of being in the present. So you are pulled in two directions: regret behind you and worry ahead of you, while the present moment, the only place where life is actually alive, is quietly overlooked. This is the illusion. The past exists only as memory, the future exists only as imagination, but the present is real. It is here that you breathe, here that you feel, here that you experience life directly. When you begin to gently bring your attention back to the present, something begins to shift. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, because the mind is so accustomed to its patterns of movement. But if you stay with it, even for a few moments, you will begin to notice a sense of stillness. Not the absence of thought, but a deeper presence beneath it. A quiet awareness that is not caught in time, not burdened by what has been or what might be. In this presence, suffering begins to lose its foundation, because suffering, as you have come to see, is often sustained by the stories of the mind, stories rooted in the past or projected into the future. When you are fully here, those stories have less power. They may still arise, but you are no longer absorbed in them. You see them for what they are: passing movements of thought, not the truth of who you are. You may begin to notice this in simple ways when you focus on your breath just for a few moments. There is a natural calming of the mind. When you pay attention to the sensations in your body, you become more grounded, more connected to the present. When you listen fully to someone without thinking ahead or looking back, there is a deeper sense of connection. These are not extraordinary experiences, but they reveal something essential: that peace is not something you create, but something that emerges when you are present. This does not mean that the past and future have no place in your life. They are useful tools. The past can offer wisdom, the future can inspire intention, but they are meant to serve you, not dominate your awareness. The problem arises when you become lost in them, when you forget that they are constructs of the mind and begin to treat them as reality. As your awareness deepens, you begin to relate to time differently. You remember the past without becoming trapped in it. You plan for the future without becoming anxious about it. And most importantly, you return again and again to the present, where life is actually unfolding. This return is not something you do once, but something you practice gently, continuously throughout your day. And in this practice, you begin to discover something profound. The present moment is not empty or ordinary, as the mind might suggest. It is full, alive, rich with experience. Even in stillness, there is a quiet sense of completeness, a feeling that in this moment, nothing is missing, that you are not waiting for life to begin. It is already here. You may still have goals, still move toward what you desire, still grow and evolve, but your sense of peace is no longer postponed. Add until some future point. It is available now, independent of circumstances. And this changes the way you live. You are no longer rushing through moments to get somewhere else. You are fully here, experiencing life as it unfolds. So gently let go of the need to live in what has already passed or what has yet to come. Return to what is here, what is real, what is alive in this moment, because it is only here that you can truly live, truly feel, truly be. The present moment is where suffering ends and life begins. There is a quiet pressure that many people carry, often without realizing it, the pressure to figure everything out. You may feel that your purpose is something distant, something you must search for, define clearly, and pursue with certainty. And so the mind begins its effort. It analyzes, compares, questions, and tries to construct a path that feels meaningful. But the more it tries to force clarity, the more confusion seems to arise. This is because purpose is not something the mind can manufacture through struggle. It is something that reveals itself when the mind becomes still. The mind, by its very nature, is restless. It is always seeking, always moving, always trying to resolve itself through thought. It looks for answers in noise, in constant activity, in endless questioning. But purpose does not speak in this noise. It does not compete with the many voices of fear, expectation, and conditioning. It arises in the spaces between thoughts, in moments of quiet awareness, where you are no longer trying to become something, but simply allowing yourself to be. You may have noticed that your clearest insights do not come when you are forcing solutions, but when you step away. Perhaps in a moment of silence in nature or even in the stillness before sleep, something becomes clear without effort. A direction feels right. A sense of knowing emerges that does not need explanation. This is not the mind figuring things out. It is a deeper intelligence expressing itself through stillness. When you are constantly striving, constantly trying to control the direction of your life, you create tension within yourself. This tension clouds your perception. It narrows your awareness and keeps you focused on outcomes rather than alignment. You begin to act metoke at alignment. You begin to act metoke urgency rather than clarity. From fear rather than understanding. And in this state, even your efforts to find purpose can lead you further away from it. But when you allow yourself to slow down, to be present, to step out of the constant movement of thought, something begins to open. You become more receptive, more attuned to the subtle signals within you. Instead of asking, "What should I do with my life?" you begin to feel, What is life asking of me in this moment? And this question does not demand an immediate answer. It invites a deeper listening. Purpose is not always a grand, singular mission. It is often revealed in small, quiet ways, in what naturally draws your attention, in what brings you a sense of meaning, in how you feel when you are aligned with yourself. It may change over time, evolve as you grow, deepen as your awareness expands, and this is not something to fear. It is the natural unfolding of life expressing itself through you. When you trust this unfolding, you begin to move differently. You are no longer forcing your path, but allowing it to reveal itself step by step. This does not mean you stop acting or making decisions. It means your actions come from a place of clarity rather than confusion, from a sense of inner knowing rather than external pressure. You still take steps forward, but they feel lighter, more natural, more in harmony with who you are. There is also a sense of ease that comes with this way of living, not because life becomes perfect, but because you are no longer in constant resistance to it. You begin to trust that you do not need to have everything figured out in advance, that each moment contains enough information for the next step. That clarity will come when it is needed, not when it is forced. And as you spend more time in stillness, you begin to recognize that purpose is not separate from presence. It is not something waiting for you in the future. It is expressed through the quality of your awareness right now. When you are present, attentive, and aligned, whatever you are doing becomes meaningful. Even the simplest actions carry a sense of purpose because they are infused with consciousness. You may still have goals, still move toward what inspires you, still create and explore. But there is less anxiety around whether you are on the right path. You begin to understand that the path is not something fixed. It is something that unfolds as you walk it. And your role is not to control every step, but to remain aware, open, and responsive to what arises. In this openness, life begins to guide you in ways that the mind alone could never predict. Opportunities appear, connections form, insights deepen, not because you planned them perfectly, but because you created space for them to emerge. This is the quiet power of stillness. It allows life to meet you, rather than forcing life to follow your expectations. So let go of the need to struggle for answers. Let go of the idea that purpose must be defined before it can be lived. Instead, return to stillness again and again. Listen, not with the noise of the mind, but with the quiet awareness within you, and trust that what is meant to unfold will reveal itself in its own time, in its own way. Purpose is not found through force, it is revealed through stillness.